Robert Redford has always seemed like the calm eye in the storm of Hollywood. For decades, he's been the man who never raised his voice, never chased controversy, and never cracked under the weight of fame. He's the golden-haired legend with an old-school charm. Disciplined, focused, and always in control. But at 88, Redford opened up in rare form about the real challenges he faced behind the scenes. Not scandals or gossip, but something more telling. The personalities that tested his patience, pushed his limits, and changed the way he approached his work. His career, spanning more than 60 years, brought him face to face with some of the most powerful performers in the business. But what most people didn't know was how hard those relationships were. Redford's view of acting was rooted in respect. For the craft, for the team, for the story. And when that wasn't shared, things didn't just become uncomfortable, they became unforgettable. These weren't dramatic public fallouts. They were silent, private shifts that shaped the direction of his career and the choices he made going forward. One of the most difficult relationships Redford ever had on set was with Gene Hackman. Both were intense actors with strong convictions, but their styles couldn't have been more different. Redford approached his work with quiet precision, aiming to serve the film above all else. Hackman, on the other hand, often came in hot, explosive, unpredictable, and fiercely independent. Redford once described him as a sledgehammer in a violin shop. That line said everything. During the filming of Downhill Racer, things reached a boiling point. Hackman refused to leave his trailer over a lighting issue, stalling the entire production. Redford, who was also producing the film, eventually went to confront him and said something that stuck. "This isn't your movie, Gene. It's a team effort. Show up or step aside." Hackman showed up, but that was the last real conversation they ever had. They finished the film, but never worked together again. Redford began turning down projects where Hackman's name came up, sometimes even writing in the margins of casting notes, "Brilliant actor. Impossible human." Another name that left a lasting impression on Redford, though for different reasons, was James Woods. Redford and Woods never did a full film together, but Woods auditioned multiple times for Redford's projects. And every time something felt off. There was one particular audition where Woods used the opportunity not to act, but to challenge Redford on the Vietnam War. Right there in the middle of the read, it turned into a debate. Redford, who kept politics out of his professional space, found the whole thing uncomfortable. He wasn't looking for chaos. He was looking for someone who understood the tone of the project. After that, Woods's name never came up again in a serious way. Redford later admitted that his casting note simply said, "Never ever." The message was clear. Things were a bit different with Dustin Hoffman. They did work together, and the result was one of the most important films of the 1970s. All the President's Men. The movie was a critical success and is still held up as a masterclass in storytelling. But behind the scenes, things weren't easy. Hoffman loved to improvise. He changed lines, altered blocking, and often took the scene in a direction no one expected. Redford, who valued preparation and structure, found that kind of unpredictability exhausting. He didn't hate it, but he couldn't work with it more than once. One particular scene involved Hoffman taking multiple takes of a phone call, changing his tone each time. Redford had to react in the moment, over and over, never sure what Hoffman would throw at him next. The tension wasn't loud. There were no screaming matches. But the atmosphere on set was stiff. After the film was released, there were no reunions, no shared interviews, no second collaborations. When asked about it, Redford said only, "Once was enough." Tom Cruise presented a whole different kind of problem. By the time they worked together on Lions for Lambs, Redford was a directing legend, and Cruise was one of the biggest stars on the planet. On paper it made sense. But in practice, it felt more like a corporate merger than a creative partnership. Cruise came to set with a team of publicists, assistants, and branding consultants. Every detail, from lighting angles to poster design, was analyzed for market appeal. For Redford, who cared about the emotional honesty of each scene, this was unbearable. There were moments on set when Redford questioned if they were even making a film or just building an advertisement. Cruise was focused on his silhouette, his wardrobe, the pace of the edit, everything except the soul of the story. Redford, who had spent his career rehearsing quiet scenes for days just to capture real vulnerability, couldn't relate. Their conversations grew shorter, their disagreements more frequent. Post-production became a tug-of-war, with Cruise requesting changes and Redford resisting. The film didn't perform well, and once it wrapped, they never spoke again. Not all of Redford's difficult partnerships were with men. Faye Dunaway, his co-star in 3 Days of the Condor, brought her own storm to the set. She was demanding, often skeptical of the direction, and wanted control over everything, from lighting to dialogue. She wasn't mean, but she was unrelenting. Redford respected her talent, but found the working environment stressful. He wanted trust and flow. Dunaway wanted precision on her terms. During a late-night conversation about her character's motivations, Dunaway questioned the emotional logic of a scene. Redford, already exhausted, snapped. "It's espionage, not Chekhov," he told her. That line became infamous among the crew. There was no fallout, no public feud. But when the film wrapped, Redford asked for a body double to film the final insert shots. That quiet decision said everything. He later referred to her as unforgettable, but never worked with her again. Then there was Robert Duvall, an actor Redford deeply admired, but couldn't quite connect with. Their work together on The Natural brought out the core of their differences. Duvall thrived on improvisation. He believed in instinct, in feeling the moment rather than following a script. Redford, meanwhile, saw film as a carefully composed piece of music. To him, every line, every beat mattered. During one emotional scene, Redford asked Duvall to follow the script more closely. Duvall refused. The two ended up in a shouting match that crew members still talk about. Redford later described the experience as jazz versus composition. He didn't say Duvall was wrong, just that they weren't speaking the same artistic language. They finished the film, but nothing came after it. Another door quietly closed. What these stories reveal is that Robert Redford never sought control for the sake of ego. He wasn't trying to dominate the set or outshine his co-stars. What he wanted, what he needed, was a space where everyone respected the work, where the story came first, and where the chaos stayed off camera. He could handle strong personalities. But what he couldn't tolerate was disruption without purpose. Over time, Redford became more selective about who he worked with. He didn't badmouth former co-stars in interviews. He didn't start feuds or share gossip. Instead, he used silence as his filter. If someone created too much noise, too much tension, they simply didn't return. This quiet professionalism became part of his legend. The man who never raised his voice but always got his point across. What makes these revelations so powerful is how they change the way we see some of Hollywood's most iconic films. Behind the calm scenes and legendary performances were real struggles. Philosophical clashes, personality conflicts, and unspoken agreements never to work together again. And through it all, Redford remained steady. He wasn't interested in drama off-screen. He was building something lasting, something thoughtful. And he knew that meant saying no as often as saying yes. The truth is, great filmmaking isn't just about talent. It's about compatibility, trust, and knowing when to walk away. Redford's experiences show that even in an industry built on fantasy, the human element still matters most. Temperament, respect, and shared values can make or break a project. And sometimes, the hardest part of the job isn't the work. It's the people. Redford's legacy is more than just his roles. It's the choices he made when the cameras weren't rolling. The quiet discipline. The high standards. The commitment to doing things the right way, even if it meant doing them alone. He taught us that you don't have to be loud to be powerful, and you don't need the spotlight to have influence. If anything, his story reminds us how much happens behind the curtain, and how the calmest figures often carry the deepest stories. Redford didn't burn bridges. He built walls where necessary, stayed silent where it mattered, and let his work speak louder than words ever could. That's why he remains one of the few true icons left. Not just for what he created, but for how he carried himself while doing it. If you found this story interesting, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Who surprised you the most? And which behind-the-scenes story changed the way you see these stars? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that pull back the curtain on Hollywood legends. And if you're already subscribed, thank you for being part of this growing community.